And today, the New York Times broke really interesting news on one part of those troubling interactions between Trump and Putin, an issue that has been the source of considerable controversy even just in the last few weeks. It was last summer, last June, that the Times first broke the news, and then the Wall Street Journal confirmed with their own reporting, that fighters, Afghan fighters who'd been detained in Afghanistan, had said during interrogation that Russia was paying money. Russia was paying cash bounties to reward attacks on U.S. troops. They were specifically paying bounties to people who killed U.S. troops. The Times reported that U.S. intelligence had found that it wasn't just a theoretical incentive to attack U.S. troops. They found evidence that, in fact, Russia had paid out those bounties. They had paid out cash to these Afghan fighters. Now, the Times reported that then President Trump had been briefed on this, and he had been offered by the National Security Council a menu of options for how the United States government could respond to this outrageous allegation against Russia. The Times reported that the option he chose from that menu was none of the above. Let's do nothing. Let's have no response. Then President Trump, in fact, had multiple conversations with Putin after Trump was reportedly briefed on this issue, but Trump apparently never raised the issue with Putin at all. Just this horrifying story, right? And it isn't the sort of thing that you can just let slide, even into a new administration. Bounties? Another government, another country paying bounties for people killing Americans, and there's not going to be a response? Not a peep? Well, very interesting development on that last month. The Biden administration announced significant new sanctions against Russia for a whole bunch of different things, including for interfering in the 2020 election to help Trump, just like they interfered in 2016 to help him. Also for the SolarWinds cyber attack, they levied new sanctions for that as well. But on this bounties issue, interesting. The administration announced that there wouldn't be new sanctions specifically for that. They said the intelligence community had only low to moderate confidence that Russian intelligence officers had sought to encourage Taliban attacks against the U.S. They had low to moderate confidence that it had happened. Now, the Biden administration did say that they took this seriously enough. There was enough evidence for these allegations that they issued a warning to Russia on the issue. They demanded an explanation from the Russian government for what they described as Russia's suspicious behavior on this front, but no new sanctions. Well, today, that story advances further. The Times basically, in essence, defending their initial reporting on that story. And this is the really new part. On the basis of what they describe as newly declassified information, for the first time, they tell us what they say is the backstory of where this intelligence, where this outrageous allegation about Russia came from. Quote, in early 2020, members of a Taliban-linked criminal network in Afghanistan, detained in raids, told interrogators that they'd heard that Russians were offering money to reward killings of American and coalition troops. The claim that Russia was trying to pay to generate more frequent attacks on Western forces was a stunning claim. CIA analysts set out to see whether they could corroborate or debunk the detainees' accounts. Ultimately, newly declassified information shows those CIA analysts discovered a significant reason to believe the claim was accurate, namely this. Other members of that same Taliban-linked criminal network in Afghanistan had been working closely with operatives from a notorious unit of the GRU, the Russian Military Intelligence Service, which is known for its assassination operations. The National Security Council said in a statement provided to the New York Times, quote, the involvement of this GRU unit, the assassination unit, is consistent with Russia encouraging attacks against U.S. and coalition personnel in Afghanistan, given its leading role in such lethal and destabilizing operations abroad. Now, they're talking about not just the GRU as a whole, they're talking about a specific unit inside the GRU. That's essentially their foreign assassination squad. The Russian intelligence unit at issue here is the one that's blamed, among other things, for the attempted assassination of Sergei Skripal with a nerve agent in Salisbury, England in 2018. This unit of the GRU is blamed for blowing up arms depots in Bulgaria and the Czech Republic, killing people in both instances. They're blamed for an attempted assassination by poisoning of a Bulgarian arms dealer as well. The National Security Council now says, quote, we have independently verified the ties of several individuals in this Afghan criminal network to Russia. Multiple sources have confirmed that elements of this criminal network in Afghanistan worked for Russia Russian intelligence for over a decade and traveled to Moscow in April 2019. The Times goes so far as to name a couple of the Afghans in question that they say was working with this GRU unit in Russia. They note that both of those Afghan guys escaped from custody in Afghanistan. And once they had escaped from custody, where did they go? They fled to Moscow, and they now reside in Russia. So this is a whole new element of this story that, maybe other people saw this coming. I did not see this coming. Afghan fighters getting paid by Russian military intelligence, specifically this notorious unit of Russian military intelligence that funds and carries out destabilization and assassination efforts abroad. That's where the intel came from, that Russia was offering bounties to those same Afghan fighters to kill American soldiers. Now, the Trump administration claimed that Trump was never actually briefed on this. They apparently lied about that when they made those claims. It apparently was briefed to him in his PDB early last year. We do know that Trump did nothing in response to that briefing. So far, the Biden administration has pushed back diplomatically on Russia. And as I mentioned, they have demanded an explanation from the Russian government as to what was going on here. But now there's this newly declassified information telling us how it may have happened. The chilling prospect that our troops in Afghanistan were potentially targets of the Russian military intelligence assassination squad that's been blamed for so many killings and attacks around the world, including in Western countries. The Biden administration demanding further answers from Russia, the Times now standing by and defending and bolstering their reporting. This stuff is not behind us yet, but we are at least finally getting closer to understanding it, which honestly is the first step toward demanding that we somehow make all of this right. Watch this space. Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.